one day I went over there, I was about 13, to her house. I was delivering papers, and it was her paper route. I'd taken it over. She was there with one of her friends, and my wife, Tammy, she was very popular among all the boys, even when she was in grade 3 and 4. Like there was like 10 of us. It wasn't a very big town, and we were all in love with her. I went over to her place one day delivering these newspapers, and she was talking to her friend. They were talking about getting married, and they were, being kind of cynical and smart ass about it. And Tammy said to her friend, I don't want to change my name when I get married. I'm going to have to marry some wimp. And she turned around and looked at me and smiled, and she said, Jordan, would you like to get married? And I told her that story when we decided to get married. And I said, well, you're Tammy Peterson, not Tammy Roberts. And so that, I got the last laugh in that story.
What would you say would be the keys to your success of 50 years of loving each other?
We really do our best not to lie to each other about anything. I think that you can establish the ground rules explicitly, and have a discussion about it. Are we going to lie to each other or not? Are we going to tell each other the truth to the degree that we can to make that an actual goal and to talk through the consequences of doing that and not doing it? And then I would also say, whenever a hiccup occurs in the relationship, maybe you don't call it out at each hiccup, because you have to have a certain amount of silent tolerance in any relationship to let small infractions go. But if they repeat, my rule is 3 times. And it's the rule that I share with my wife. If something happens 3 times that is causing emotional upset, anger, jealousy, disappointment, resentment, frustration, any of those things, anything that you don't want to experience and that you especially don't want to experience repeatedly. We also have fights when they're necessary. We don't hide things in the fog. If we have a dispute, we do our level best to get to the bottom of it, to find out what in the world's causing it, whose needs to change and why and how and when, and then how we can progress forward into the future without having that issue dog us or drag behind us or interfere with us at all. People wonder why I engage in conflict. I hate conflict. And I find it very stressful. But conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. As the conflict is delayed, it's the reasons multiply. And the persons who are involved, because they're avoiding, demean themselves and get weaker and less confident. And so it's a vicious circle. There's a line in the New Testament, Christ talks about prayer. And so you imagine that as communion with God. So you could imagine that as an attempt to confer with the ideal, or maybe to even occupy that space for a while. Well, Christ says, if you have a problem with your brother, fix that first. Go pray later. Do not agree with something you don't agree with.
Ooh.
Like if we decide, you and me, that we're doing this, we don't go back and say, well, I didn't really mean it. We don't get to play revisionist with our history. I also think people are not taught to negotiate.
Oh man.
At all. And that's a real shame. First of all, you figure out what you want. This is what I want. Then you tell the person, then you strategize with them so that you can get what you want and they can get what they want, and you both know what that is, and away you go together. I think you can be a slave or a tyrant, or you can negotiate. Those are your options.
Mm-hmm.
And we default to slavery and tyranny because that doesn't require any cognitive effort.
Mm.
And then we pretend that everything's all right. And then it blows up in our faces and we end up divorced. So if you don't agree, fight, object, or hold your peace.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see what happens with couples is there's a little fight, and then one says to the other, yeah, but you did this. And then that person says, yeah, I know I did that, but then that was because you did this, and each this gets bigger until what's on the table is, why the hell should we stay together at all? You have to come to a negotiated agreement about that situation, and you have to pay attention to your own uncomfortable negative emotions in order to manage that, and not pretend that everything's all right, or that you're nicer than you are, or that you're less jealous than you are. I think jealousy probably causes more trouble than good, but that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the proprietary interest. Should you care if your partner pays undue attention to someone of the opposite sex they find attractive? Well, probably you should care. You might even say something about it. They might even be happy about that, right? Because it indicates that you noticed and that it matters to you. Now, I think it shades into jealousy when it's harmless interactions. It's interactions that would be regarded as harmless by a third-party observer, let's say. I know that's a very difficult line to draw, that are being magnified as a consequence of insecurity on the part of the observer. Or there's envy, where your partner is attracting attention, status, success, any of those things, and you're jealous of that. That's not helpful. I don't think competition between people who are in a monogamous relationship is useful, particularly. Resentment is so horrible, so toxic, it's so destructive, but it's so informative. If you're resentful, you're either being oppressed and not standing up for yourself, or you're whiny and should grow up. And both of those things are really useful to realize. And all you have to do is notice that you're resentful and want to do something about it. Okay, I'm resentful. Okay, am I immature? You know, are people picking on me, or I am immature? If people are picking on me, do I have something to say or something to do? I should do it. It's a gateway to improvement, resentment. Or you can let it devour you and take you places that no one with a clear mind would ever want to go. Hell. That's resentment, man. That's the pathway to hell. We also attend to the relationship. It's chapter 10, plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationship. And we do that as well. And it is effortful. I mean, we try to have, throughout our relationship, we've tried to have romantic dates 1 to 3 times a week. And they require preparation and cooperation and the will to do it, and the will to put yourself on the line, and the desire to make that a priority even when other things are more pressing. So let's say you want the ideal romantic evening. Well, okay, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to put yourself in reasonable physical shape? So you're attractive? Are you going to make a playlist and put some time into it? Are you going to buy some candles? Are you going to buy something nice to wear? Are you going to wear it? Are you going to dare to wear it? That might be true for you and for your partner. Are they going to dare to wear it? Are you going to be smart enough, if they do wear it, to respond in a way that makes them feel confident and increases the probability that they'll do it again? Are you going to do whatever is necessary to make yourself physically attractive in that moment? Are you going to have the kids put away? Have you got the day-to-day aggravations with each other that are dragging you down and making you resentful under control, so that you actually do want to give your partner some pleasure? Like, these things are very hard, but they're not impossible. And they're worth it. We have fun together. We love our kids. We have had joint projects of all sorts together, renovating houses, traveling, raising our children, now our grandchildren. We both want it to work. That's another thing. We're committed to it, and not interested in finding another relationship. One of the things I learned from Carl Jung, the psychoanalyst, about marriage was that there is a reason marriage was a vow. Like, the vow is that you stick together. I'm not saying that people should never separate. I am saying, though, that it's better not to, if you can manage it. You also have to shake the illusion that the other person is somehow not you. You're so tied up with them that there's no difference between you and them in some sense, is that what's good for her is going to be good for you and vice versa. You have to want the best for the other person and you and for the relationship. And within that confine, you want to tell each other the truth. The most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is to not to lie to your partner.
We can stay out of depression, but we have to keep depression at bay by doing things regularly. The depressed person has to take responsibility for their behavior, but this is why it's so important to catch this brain-body relationship early and build routines that keep one out of depression.